The wind was cold. It moved like a knife through the broken land. Snow fell from the sky without stopping, covering the rocks and the dead machines. Jace, a human explorer, walked alone through this frozen alien planet. His boots made deep marks in the snow. His breath made small clouds in the air. He had been walking for hours, looking for old tech or fuel, anything useful to bring back. Suddenly, he heard a sound, a strange cry. It was weak, like something small and hurt. Jace stopped. He listened again. The sound came from under a pile of broken metal covered in ice and dust. He moved closer, carefully pulling the sharp pieces aside. Then he saw it. A small creature, shaking and bleeding, was stuck under the wreckage. It had gray fur, long ears, and bright golden eyes. Its mouth had sharp teeth. It looked like a predator, but a baby one. It growled weakly at Jace, trying to show strength, but its body was too tired to move. Jace didn't know what it was. He had never seen this kind of animal before. But something in its eyes made him stop. It wasn't just an animal. It was scared, lost, cold. Jace slowly took off his thermal jacket and wrapped it around the little creature. The cub didn't fight. It just stared at him with those golden eyes. "Easy now," Jace whispered. "I won't hurt you." He gently lifted the creature into his arms. It was lighter than he thought. And then he noticed something. Around the cub's neck was a small collar. It had a strange symbol glowing softly. Jace didn't recognize it, but it looked important. Maybe even royal. Jace looked around. The snow was getting worse. He needed to get back to his shelter. He carried the cub through the storm, keeping it close to his chest. Every now and then, the cub let out a low sound, not a growl, but something like a whimper. By the time he reached his small outpost, his hands were shaking from the cold. He placed the cub on a soft blanket near the heater and gave it some water. At first, it didn't move. Then, slowly, it sniffed the bowl and drank. For a while, Jace just watched. What was this creature? Why was it wearing a glowing collar? And why was it left alone here, in the middle of nowhere? That night, as Jace sat beside the heater, he thought about what to do. He didn't have much food, and caring for a predator, especially an alien one, was dangerous. But leaving it out there in the cold again, that felt wrong. He looked at the cub. It had curled up, the jacket still wrapped around it. Its breathing was slow, but steady now. It seemed more peaceful. Jace didn't sleep much. Every little sound made him wake up, thinking the creature might attack. But it never did. It just slept. In the morning, Jace checked on it again. The cub opened its eyes and looked at him. It didn't growl. It didn't run. It just looked. Then, slowly it moved its head and touched his hand with its nose. A soft moment. Jace felt something inside shift. This wasn't just a rescue. This was the beginning of something strange, something powerful. He opened his small datapad and scanned the collar. The device couldn't fully read it, but it pulled a few strange words. Property of the Empress. Royal biocode. Last guardian. Jace blinked. Empress. Guardian. What had he found? Or maybe, what had found him? He looked down at the cub again. It was watching him quietly, eyes deep and knowing. This was no ordinary creature. Jace had a feeling life was about to change. Not just for him, but maybe for the whole galaxy. And it all started with a cry in the cold. A dangerous bond. The cub was no longer silent. It made strange sounds, soft growls, sharp huffs, and sometimes even a high-pitched call that echoed in the small shelter. At first, Jace didn't understand any of it. But slowly, he began to notice a pattern. The cub made the sharp call when it was hungry. It growled when it didn't like something. And it made the soft huffing sound when it was calm. It was learning to trust him. Jace named her Ree. He didn't know why. The name just felt right. Short, soft, but strong. Just like her. Each day, he gave her water, warm food, and space to rest. Each night, she moved closer to him. At first, she slept on the far side of the shelter. Then, after a few nights, she curled up at the edge of his sleeping mat. Her golden eyes always stayed open until Jace closed his own. But something strange began to happen. Ree was growing fast, too fast. In just a few days, her legs were stronger, her claws sharper, and her stare more intense. Jace noticed her movements were not like normal animals. She was quick, almost too quick. Once, she leapt onto the roof in one silent jump. Another time, she stared at the communication console and tilted her head, as if she understood how it worked. Jace became curious. What kind of creature learns so fast, eats so much, grows so strong in just a few days? Still, he couldn't push her away. She had chosen to stay, and he had chosen to protect her. Outside the shelter, snow still covered the land. But skies were not quiet anymore. Jace's radar picked up faint signals, ships moving in orbit, scanning. Not normal traders. These were controlled, focused, searching. Jace narrowed his eyes. Were they looking for something? Or someone? He didn't tell Ree, but she seemed to know anyway. One night, while he was fixing the power unit, she stood by the door and growled at the sky. Her body was tense. Her ears pointed high. Her tail moved slowly from side to side. The next morning, things became clear that a strange object fell from the sky and landed miles away with a flash of light. Jace saw it on the monitor. It was a drop pod, military class, and it didn't come to help. That night, Ree didn't sleep. She sat at the edge of the shelter, her eyes glowing in the dark, watching the cold outside. Then something happened. Jace was making tea when Ree let out a deep, rumbling sound he had never heard before. It shook the walls. Lights blinked. And then, silence. The outside scanner was dead. Jace grabbed his old handheld scope and went outside. He looked into the distance. There, shadows moved in the snow. Figures in black armor. They had weapons, and they were coming straight toward him. Jace's hands shook. He turned back inside that he had to choose. Run, hide, fight. He looked at Ree. She was standing now, calm but ready. She moved closer to him and touched his hand with her head. No feared, no doubt. In that moment, Jace understood. She was not a pet. She was something more, and someone out there wanted her back, or wanted her dead. Jace packed what he could, loaded supplies into his sled, and opened the back hatch. Ree jumped in with ease. As the engine started, Jace looked once more at the glowing collar around her neck. Who are you, Ree? The sled shot off into the snowy dark, just as the attackers reached the old shelter, and far behind them, in the clouds above, a ship watched. Silently, its pilot whispered one word when the scan picked up the heat signature of the Cub. Target found. Jace didn't know it yet, but his bond with Ree had just made him the center of something far greater than survival that IT had made. Him the guardian of a secret the galaxy would kill to control. The hunt begins. Snow wasn't the only thing falling from the sky anymore. Signals dropped like shadows, coated and quiet, almost invisible. But one of them reached a deadly pair of ears. Far across the stars, a bounty hunter named Velar locked onto the strange heat trail from the frozen world. A young predator had been detected. Not wild, not free, claimed, and by a human, no less. Velar smiled without warmth. She's still alive. Back on the snowy planet, Jace had found shelter in an old mining tunnel. The cave was deep and dry, protected from satellite scans. He placed thermal blankets across the entrance and kept the fire low. Ree stayed close, her golden eyes glowing in the dark. She was no longer a cub. She was stronger, smarter, and more alert with every passing day, but something about her had changed. She wasn't just copying Jace's movements now. She was predicting them. When he reached for a tool, she was already passing it to him. When he looked toward the sky, she was already growling. Something inside her was awakening. Jace didn't fully understand it, but he felt it. Ree wasn't just learning, she was. Remembering 3 days after the escape, the silence broke. Jace was scanning for food sources when his handheld radar beeped. A ship had entered the atmosphere. Small, fast, and cold, no identity code. Whoever it was, they weren't part of any rescue. And they were landing close. He looked at Ree. She had already gotten up. Her claws scratched lightly on the rock floor. She was watching the cave mouth like prey was near. Jace powered down the radar. If someone had found them, they wouldn't need another signal to lock on. They'd come with weapons. And they did. Velar and his scout dropped from the ship without making a sound. They moved like shadows through the snow, their suits designed to hide heat. But Ree sniffed the air once and growled. A deep, dark warning. Jace picked up his old blaster and backed into the shadows. He didn't want to fight, but he knew one thing now. Someone wanted Ree bad enough to cross a frozen world for her. The first hunter slipped into the cave mouth, crouched and slow. He raised his weapon, expecting a small cub. Instead, Ri lunged with a roar that echoed through the stone. Point one. Move. Point one. Strike. The hunter flew back against the wall, weapon broken, helmet cracked. Jace stood frozen. Ri didn't kill him. She just stepped forward and roared again, louder this time. The sound shook dust from the ceiling. Her body glowed faintly, like something ancient was waking inside her. The second hunter turned to run, but stopped when a message buzzed in his ear. Don't harm the cub. She's not just the Empress's pet. She is the last royal heir. The scout froze. Back in the cave, Jace grabbed Ri and ran deeper into the tunnels. He didn't care who or what they said she was. He only knew one thing. She had trusted him, and now it was his turn to protect her. Behind them, Veeler didn't chase. He watched the direction Jace ran and marked it on his tracker. He didn't need to rush, he only needed to wait. This wasn't just a hunt anymore. It was a race for control, because whoever controlled the predator princess controlled fear itself. The Empress's whisper. Jace never planned to raise royalty. He only wanted to save a life. But now, deep inside the silent tunnels of a forgotten planet, he was holding the galaxy's most wanted secret in his arms, and it was purring softly in its sleep. Ri rested against his chest, her breathing slow and even. But the collar around her neck had begun to glow again, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. It had never done that before. Something had activated it. Jace placed her down and studied the strange markings on the collar. A small crystal in the center now blinked in a soft rhythm, then projected a beam of light against the cave wall. A shimmering image appeared in the cold air, a tall, fierce-looking alien woman, cloaked in silver, her eyes tired but noble. The message began. To the one who holds this message, if you have found my child, then I am likely gone. My empire is burning, and those who wish for power will stop at nothing. The creature you shelter is no mere pet. She is Ri Tala, daughter of the Empress of Claws, rightful heir to the throne. Jace's heart pounded. His breath caught. She may look small now, the voice continued, but her bloodline is ancient, born to lead, to roar, to rule. Protect her. Teach her kindness, because the galaxy she will face knows none. And if you are brave enough to stand beside her, then you are her guardian now. The light faded. Silence returned. Jace sat frozen, staring at the wall where the image had vanished. His hands shook. Ri was watching him. She had opened her eyes, calm and focused, as if she understood every word spoken in that message. She stepped forward and sat beside him. Her paw touched his hand, not as a cub, but as a queen in waiting. That night, Jace did not sleep. He watched the tunnel entrance, weapon ready, because everything had changed. The bounty hunters weren't chasing a rare animal. They were chasing the last hope of a dying empire. And he was no longer just a man hiding in the snow. He was now the protector of the galaxy's most powerful predator. And someone, somewhere, was planning to take her back, alive or dead. Reawakens. The snowstorm outside raged for days, but inside the cave, something even stronger was building. Ri no longer acted like a cub. Her body had grown taller, her limbs more powerful, and her golden eyes burned with strange light. But it wasn't just her body that changed, it was her mind. She no longer copied Jace. Now she led him. When he turned left, she was already waiting there. When he aimed his weapon, she was already watching the wind. She spoke no words, but her silence was full of meaning. Jace felt it in her every look. She remembered things she had never seen with him. Night, she no longer slept beside the fire. She climbed to the highest rocks and watched the stars through cracks in the ceiling. And sometimes she let out a sound, a soft, deep call, like a song of mourning. Jace knew she was calling someone who would never return. The Empress was truly gone. But her daughter remained. One morning, while checking his supplies, Jace heard a roar from outside. Not Ri's. This was deeper, wilder. He rushed out, weapon in hand, and stopped. The wild beast, massive and armored with frozen fur, had wandered too close. It towered over the shelter, teeth like blades, breath steaming the air. Ri stood between it and Jace, alone. The beast lowered its head to strike, but Ri didn't move. She growled once, just once. The air trembled. The beast paused, then backed away slowly, its head bowed. It turned and disappeared into the white mist, leaving behind no fight, no blood, only fear. Jace stared at Ree, stunned. She looked back at him, and this time, she smiled. That was the day he knew. She wasn't just royal. She wasn't just strong. She was awakening into something far greater, something ancient and untamed. Later, when they rested, she placed her paw on the side of his face. Her claws never scratched. Her strength never harmed. It was a gesture of thanks, but the peace would not last. That same night, the sky cracked open again. 3 ships entered the atmosphere, black and silent, their engines cold and their intentions colder. They weren't here to capture. They were here to end her. Ree rose from her rest, walked to the edge of the cave, and looked at Jace. No fear in her eyes, just fire. She wasn't hiding anymore, and neither was he. Jace gripped his blaster tighter. Whatever came next, they would face it together, because now, Ree wasn't just the last of her kind. She was ready to fight for her future, and Jace would fight with her until the very end. The royal claim. The ground shook before the ships even landed. Jace had seen warships before, loud, bright, full of fire. But these were different. They made no sound until the very last moment. Their dark wings spread wide over the ice, casting long shadows like death itself had come flying. When the doors opened, no soldiers marched out. Instead, a single figure stepped forward. He wore no armor, only royal colors. And when he saw Ree, he fell to one knee. "Your Highness," he said, head bowed low. Jace froze. He had expected weapons, violence, maybe even blood. Not this. Ree didn't move at first. She just stared at the stranger. Then slowly, she walked toward him, silent, powerful, graceful. She stood in front of him for a long time. Then she growled softly. Not a threat, but a command. The man stood up, eyes wide with respect. "I am Commander Vale," he said. "I served your mother until the very end. We thought you were lost, but you survived because this human made a choice." Vale turned toward Jace. "You saved the last royal blood of the Claw Empire. That makes you more than her guardian. That makes you part of the royal line's survival." Jace didn't know what to say. He wasn't a leader. He wasn't a warrior. He was just a scavenger who found a freezing cub in the snow. But Ree stepped beside him. She looked up at him, then placed her paw on his chest, where his heart beat. Vale watched carefully. "She chooses you," he said. "The old code is clear. The heir may name a protector, one who stood with her when the galaxy turned its back. But she's just a cub," Jace whispered. "No," Vale replied. "She is queen, born of the Empress, blood of the first roar, and she has awakened because of you." Jace felt the weight of those words. He didn't want power. He didn't want a title. He had only followed his heart, and now that heart had placed him in the middle of something vast and ancient. But it wasn't over yet. Vale looked up at the sky. "Others will come, not to kneel, but to destroy. The Empress's enemies fear her bloodline. They know if Ree rises, their time ends." Ree growled again. But this time, she didn't sound like a cub. She sounded like thunder, like royalty, like a future that would not be stopped. Jace finally understood. Ree was not his to keep, but he was hers to trust, and that meant everything. The human who raised a queen. The enemy came at dawn. Not one ship, not 3, but a fleet. Dark war cruisers covered the sky, blocking out the sun. Their engines howled like monsters. Each vessel carried firepower strong enough to level a city. This wasn't a hunt anymore. This was an execution. They didn't fear Ree. They feared what she could become. Jace stood beside her on the frozen cliff. Snow whipped around them. The wind was sharp. But Ree stood tall, unmoving, her eyes glowing like golden fire. Behind them, Commander Vale's loyal guards had formed a line, ready to fight and die if needed. But Ree didn't roar. She stepped forward and did something no one expected. She raised her head toward the enemy ships and let out a cry that shook. The sky.it wasn't just a roar.it was a command, a sound older than war, older than fear, a sound only those of royal blood could make. The air pulsed. The ground cracked. The front line of enemy ships froze midair. Their systems failed. Lights died. Weapons shut down. Then, one by one, those ships turned away, retreating without a shot fired. The silence afterward was louder than war. Ree had spoken, and the galaxy had listened. Back on the ice, Jace lowered his weapon. He turned to Ree, still stunned. You ended it, he whispered. Ree looked at him with calm, intelligent eyes. She stepped closer and placed her head against his chest. Not as a cub, not as a queen, but as family. That evening, inside the now-safe royal ship, Vale stepped forward holding a dark crown made of steel and bone. He knelt before Ree. Your time has come, he said. But Ree didn't move toward the throne. She looked at Jace, and only when he nodded did she step forward and claim her birthright. When Ree sat upon the throne of the Claw Empire, the galaxy expected blood, war, and revenge, but she gave them something else. She gave them peace, and she gave her first royal decree to the one who raised her, not with fear, but with kindness. Jace was named her guardian father, the only human allowed within the royal court, the only being Ree trusted above all. And across the stars, the story spread. A human found a cub in the snow and raised a queen who would change the galaxy forever. The end.